You're listening to Make It, a podcast by Bonsai Creative that helps aspiring professionals in film get where they're going faster by dissecting the advice, knowledge, and insights of professional creatives in the film industry. I'm your host, Chris Barkley, and with me today is my good friend and Make It podcast co-host, Nicholas Buggs. Hello, Chris here with another episode of the Make It podcast, and this is an Indie Talk week, and that means I'm here with my good friend and co-host, Nicholas Buggs. Nick, say hello.
What's up, folks? As always, it's great to be back.
Yes, it is, and we have some interesting and fun topics as this year sort of comes to an end. Today, we're going to talk about why your social media marketing campaign didn't work and what to do about it. And that could be and should be a really wide-ranging conversation, Nick, and something we hear from indie creatives a lot, and we'll expound upon that in a minute. And we're also going to talk about the shakeup at Warner Brothers and how it affects independent filmmakers and what independent filmmakers should take from this movement that's happening towards streaming and HBO Max at Warner Brothers. So, Nick, before we hop into that, what are your plans for Christmas?
Man, I must say, to be honest, I want to sleep. Now, you're talking about Christmas Day. You're talking about around Christmas, because
what is Christmas?
Yeah, I just want to sleep. I just want to take a break. And just get some rest, just relax, maybe eat some good food, drink some good drink. Toast to some of the people that, you wish you could be spending this time with, but COVID says you should do otherwise. But this holiday season, I just want to take a break from it all, relax, enjoy time with my family. And, we've got a couple surprises for the kiddos. So, hopefully we can make their day or make their year. So that's about it for me.
Yeah. And you said it right. You said holiday season. And it's like when people say, hey, what are you doing for Christmas? I don't think they mean the 25th. I think they kind of mean like the realm of the holiday, right?
Yeah, you just did that like circle thing with your hand, didn't you? You're like the realm. I know everybody can see me right now. I got my hand open and doing a little circle thing. Like
I did do it. How did you know that? Is that because you can see me? I don't know if you can see me through my camera, but yeah, I literally did it. Do you know me that well? That's creepy.
I know you that well, man. I know you that well. The realm. Yeah, so for us, Christmas season or the holiday season started on November 1st. The kids were just like, we want to start decorating and doing all the things like right after Halloween. It's like, it's funny because, they used to be the ones who'd walk in the, in the store, around November 1st and see all the Christmas stuff and be like, why do they have all this Christmas stuff up? It's not even Thanksgiving yet. And this year, they're the ones who are like, nope, November 1st, tree goes up, decorations start. And I'm like, cool, let's do it. Let's make it happen.
I have to admit, I started earlier than normal this year as well. Not with like the gift buying or anything like that, but like with like the festivities. Like I had Christmas lights up in my house. I have a massive sign in the front of my house that says Merry Christmas. I mean, it has got to be, oh gosh, Nick, I'd say 20 yards wide. No, maybe not that. Maybe it's more like 15 yards. It's 15 yards wide. It's about 3 feet tall. It says Merry Christmas. It's unbelievable. And it's like so much, it's like an overwhelming amount of Christmas joy. And I even went in for my Christmas drink and my holiday drink earlier this year. Like I started drinking it like right at Thanksgiving. I normally wait like at least 3 weeks before I go in. And here's the drink. The drink is vanilla spiced eggnog with some Sailor Jerry's spiced rum. So you do basically 4 parts eggnog to 1 part rum. You can throw a cinnamon stick if you want to. A lot of people just don't have cinnamon sticks laying around. So if you don't have that, I like to take a little bit of nutmeg and a little bit of cinnamon, put it Just sprinkle it, just every little sprinkle, delicate little sprinkle over the top. And then you have a very tasty, very fattening, but very delicious holiday drink that everyone's just going to think you're drinking the nog, but you are knocking back some of Grandpa's old cough medicine.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll give you, so my eggnog beverage would be very similar, but I would use one of two different liquors in it. One could be the Black Seal spiced rum, which is very good. Those are often used, or that liquor is often used in a dark and stormy. But then another one that I don't know if a lot of people drink would be the Café Patron. So that's the coffee flavored liqueur that Patron makes. So if you drop that in some eggnog, yeah, you got a tasty little beverage.
But that has tequila in it, right?
Yeah.
So it's tequila and what else?
So it's just coffee Patron. So it's a coffee flavored tequila.
Oh, it's the coffee. Oh, got it. Okay. I have a bottle of Casa Azul. It is worth, I don't know if it's worth the money. but it's very delicious. It is like the best tequila I think I've ever drank. And I was just thinking, if I can use that in this mixed drink, then it'd be great. But it sounds like I guess I could make coffee and then mix it with, but I don't think it
Nah, you do the Café Patron. It's a nice little mix to go with the eggnog.
Okay. Next time we see each other, I'll let you sip the Casa Azul and then let you tell me what you think. Okay.
Yeah, because we sip the goodness.
Yeah, we don't drink it. We're not getting drunk.
Exactly.
We're not animals.
Right. What do we look like? Come on now.
I'm not animal.
You're right. We sip.
Well, Nick, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a great year. And knock on wood, we both made it through the end of the most tumultuous year in our life. And to come through unscathed is truly a blessing. And again, like I say, knock on wood, there's still time for a Hail Mary for COVID.
No, we're good, man. We're good.
I think we're going to be good. Okay.
Yep, for sure.
Let's hop in, man.
Yeah, let's do it.
This first topic about social media campaigns is really near and dear to our heart. Obviously, Bonsai is an advisory producer services team. And a lot of those advisory producer services revolve around branding and marketing. So again, very close to our heart. And then on top of that, I think we would say of the hundreds of prospectus, screenplays, budgets, pitches we get, about 90% of them are without line items in indie films specifically, are without line items for marketing or branding, which is essentially a death knell to the whole entire project. But when you go out into the world and you survey independent filmmakers that are creative and super smart and almost like engineers and going out and creating on a dime and on a small budget, it's amazing. And if you talk to them and say, hey, what did you do for marketing? Almost everyone says, yeah, we had a marketing plan. We did it. And then we find out that maybe it was the marketing plan was going to a group of festivals. Or maybe the marketing plan was to let everyone of their friends know on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter that they have a movie out. Or maybe their plan was to get it to a distributor and let the distributor in a services deal do all the marketing for them. Or maybe it was they spent $500 to $1,000 putting out ads, paid ads, onto Facebook, Snapchat, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, etc. And then you'll ask the next question, Nick, the inevitable question, well, how did that work out for you?
Yep, for sure.
And well, say, well, it didn't really move the needle. And so we don't really believe in it. We don't really think this is necessary. We don't really think this works for independent filmmakers. And I'm here to tell you that that's just not the case. And there's probably a reason why, or a few reasons why your campaign didn't work. And so we're going to go through a couple of those reasons now. One of the first reasons is because your marketing wasn't tied, or I should say reason number one, Nick. It's because your marketing wasn't tied to a compelling or emotional or an emotion deriving brand. And so one of the things that we always talk about, Nick, is how soon did you start the branding effort to sort of let your community, your people know, or people that might be interested in this subject, the audience you pick, right? Or that you're trying to serve. How soon did you let them know about what the movie was about, the tone and brand of your project, Nick?
Yeah, and I think that's, you'd said earlier that like 90%, of what we see, what we received, doesn't have this in it. I think it's probably you're being nice. It might be on the order of 95 to 99%, right? It's that, from our perspective, that bad, that folks aren't, including, a budget or a specific plan for these. And I just also want to mention that you said, a plan. And, from my background and, project management, program management, and strategic planning, a plan is a very specific and thoughtful thing, right? It isn't just the thing that you just do. It's the thing that you execute, right? You refer to it. And, I think, the idea of just, hey, I'm going to tell people on social that I've got this movie out, that's not a plan. You didn't execute on something that you'd been thoughtful about, because if you'd been thoughtful about it, that's not how you would have executed. But,
right.
Getting to your point there, yeah, there's a huge challenge in indie film, I think, where there's just this almost this odd sense that your indie film is on the same playing field or the same level as studio content. Right. And just by making your film, people are going to want to see it, or people are going to know it's out there, and that's just not the case. So just like you're saying, like, you need to get out to the audiences very early on that you expect to watch this, and, have a conversation with them, invite them into the process, let them know why they need your content, because ultimately what you're doing is you're asking them to take their eyes away from the thing that's familiar and then look your way, right? That doesn't just happen by you creating a thing. It's like the idea of, someone makes a film and they're like, well, it's the best thing I've ever made. I've been working on this thing for 20 years and here it is. This is my film. And it's wonderful. Well, that's awesome. And we applaud you, for getting it done. We applaud you for living with this thing for 20 years and it being your passion. We applaud you for finishing it, putting it out there in the world. But if people don't know about your content, if they don't know about your purpose, your passion, all these things, then they may never even see the wonderful thing that you created. And that's what you're dealing with. So yeah, I totally agree that messaging in the beginning is huge. Like, you have to go after that audience specifically to let them know that you're here, and then give them a compelling reason as to why they should take their eyes off of the thing that's familiar on Netflix or Amazon or Hulu or wherever else to pay attention to your thing.
Right. And so when you get the sort of noun, if you will, or maybe at worst, I don't know, Nick, adverb of branding, you need to follow it with the verb of marketing. So marketing is really just the action you're taking upon creating a compelling and emotional brand. And the best brands, I keep using the word emotional, the best brands really are emotional. They really drive some sort of emotion and feeling around the creation of it. And what I see a lot today in independent film, the brand has to do with some sort of social movement. I'm seeing that being a great path to emotional branding. Like, I'm the person from these protest videos from earlier this year, or I'm the person who empowers female independent writers and creatives to just go for it, or whatever it may be. Or I'm the female filmmaker that makes movies about women that are doing these different things or amazing things. Or I'm this person that employs these people that normally don't get employed. So all these different ways to sort of draw emotion and attention to yourself as a filmmaker first to create a brand. It doesn't have to be social, by the way, but I'm just seeing that a lot because it's 2020, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Before that, there are lots of different, obviously, ways to do it, and to create that brand for yourself. A lot of times you can create a brand for yourself. Let's say if it were any other year, but 2020, right? By the content you make, right? I make not horror films. I make this type of horror film. I don't make sci-fi movies. I make whimsical sci-fi movies. I don't do, so you're in the genre, but you have a subgenre that's specific to you, where there's an edge to what you're making that makes your audience even more sharp and even more specific in the most beautiful way. I think it took a lot of books, but eventually with the films, like, a Stephen King movie, like that's a brand of horror film. You kind of know what to expect there.
Right.
Once you have that brand, then you know what action to take with the verb of marketing. So you can take that content and hit the right audiences in the right place, where they live, where they're at, and then push people, to the place you want them to go.
Yeah. And with that, I was just going to say that, what you mentioned, the best brands provide this emotional hook, if you will. And I think it's because the best brands make you the hero in your own story, and they present themselves as the guide.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's the key. And for me, for, any type of independent filmmaking or any type of filmmaking period, I guess that's the goal. I think it's just greater in independent filmmaking because, where are you guiding these people to when you don't have, like the IP, the intellectual property that's associated with some of these bigger films, right? It's like, it's easier. I get it. This is, 2020 is a whole different thing, and it causes challenges across the board. So I'm not going to say that it was easy to market trolls, but it's easy to market trolls, right? Like, I mean, it's, it's a kid's movie. It's animated. There was already a Trolls. Like, people were kind of waiting for the follow up to that. There is a bit of a, there's an absence to that type of content from the big studio. So again, there's kind of an appetite already there. But again, when you're making from an independent side, that's the key, is that, there needs to be an emotional tie to your audience as to why, or what you're doing for them, so that they can watch this film, right? It's like, what are you doing for them in their lives? That's why in independent film, you'll see that documentaries do very well, right? It's either, telling their story, right, of the audience that you want to watch, or it's educating an audience regarding someone else's story. So that's very simple, to show, oh yeah, you're the hero in this story and I'm your guide. When it comes to other genres of film, it can get more difficult, but it's not impossible. Right? Documentaries basically hit you over the head with it. Whereas you can have documentary type themes in a drama. You can do that in a horror film. You can do that in a comedy, but it's not just because you're doing a horror film for the blood and the scare. It's not, you're not just doing the comedy for the sake of the jokes, but it's the same thing. Where are you taking your audience? Why do they need to go on this journey with you? What are you doing for them? That's the key. And I think in a lot of stuff that we've been dealing with independent filmmakers, the indie filmmakers seem to make it about themselves so much that they're blinded to the need to be there for their audience.
It's brilliantly put. And it's a great point. It is such a meaningful point. And I think it's actually true of all sort of outbound messaging. If you have any type of outbound messaging, if you can make it about the person that's getting the message and not about what you need from them, it's going to be twice as successful. And that's just sort of a law of maybe sales and marketing, if you will. And so
Yeah.
It's a critical point to bring up. The other factor too, and this could go, I'll say this is the second reason, by the way, but it could also go with the first reason. And the second reason your plan might not work is because where you're taking people is not optimized. I know there's just like this thought that, oh, no one goes to websites anymore. Everyone's on social. It's just not true. What's happening is people are going to websites, but through their phone. And so you need to have a great mobile site that's very simple and very clear. But what does that mean? It also means your content has to be great to go there. And so if you have created, content to push out about your film, that means your trailer and your teaser have to be superb. And oftentimes, like Nick was saying earlier, or like you were saying earlier, Nick, what is it about that content that's going to make me turn my eyes away from this over here to that over there, right? And to your content. And you talked about Trolls. Well, Trolls has a totally different problem. It's like apples and oranges. Their problem is, how do we market to get the profit we're supposed to get based on the budget of this film? And the independent filmmaker is just strict attention on their audience, right? They don't have to worry about getting people to understand their brand as Trolls. They have
exactly
their issue is, how do we get the most dollars per view per person as possible. And so there's this sort of a more economically focused and targeted deal. I think indie filmmakers are like, we have to build the brand and then hope people will come so that we can get fair market value. And we're going to talk about that later, but here's the deal. Your content has to be compelling enough to get people to turn their heads. And frankly, a lot of times the website is not paid attention to enough. And the excuse that's used is, well, no one goes to websites anymore. And I'm just here to say it's just not true. So let's say your teaser and your trailer are great, compelling. They click through, go to that website. The messaging on that website, the way your website works, needs to be targeted. What do I mean by that? Here's what I mean. When someone watches your trailer, you need to know who that person is. And when someone goes to your website, you need to know who that person was, what state they were from or city. And this technology is out there. It's readily available. And you need to know how long they stayed on your website and what they did transactionally while they were on your website. Why? Because you might have done all the right things and pared your audience down to like the tip of a pencil or pen, but you might find out that the people that are actually clicking on your trailer or teaser based on how you cut it are different than the audience that you expected to get. And I know, Nick, me and you have worked on films before where we thought, okay, 35 to 45-year-old women are going to love this. And then it turned out they didn't. and we couldn't figure out why. And it turned out our demographic was actually older and too old, and that 25 to 35-year-old women liked it a lot more, or even 20 to 30-year-old women liked it more. And we needed to understand that through A/B split testing. But without knowing who your audience is, you're kind of just throwing darts in the dark, right?
Yeah, and I think I'd like to go back to the website idea, which is, honestly, I mean, if you think that people are just using social, I don't know if people are thinking that, this is just kids go to social and maybe that's your audience and you think that that's what they're doing because they're on social a lot. But, ultimately everyone kind of knows that social is the facade, right? It's like, tiny little bits and bytes of what a person or a company or a brand is really about. So, especially a business, right? Ultimately, as a filmmaker putting out a film, it's a business. So in order for someone to find more, they're going to go to the website, right? And the absence of a website just creates doubt, about what this thing is, why it's here, who are the people involved in it. It doesn't seem legit, right? Because legitimate businesses have websites. So I think that's definitely a falsehood to think that, people are only looking at social, because it doesn't give the full picture, and people want the full picture before they're willing to invest their time or money into any product. So I think that's definitely a big thing. And then of course, when they get there, it's what you do for them and what you do with them, when they get there. So, part of a marketing plan is to, one, have a website, two, make sure you have compelling content And that includes the text, the graphics, the teasers, the trailers, and all that stuff available, as well as, information about the filmmakers, information about the process. And again, getting back to that first principle about, what is this thing about? Not just the product and what it can do, but what it can do for the person who's going to watch it. What's compelling them to look at this versus something else. So yeah, those landing pages, they're like a website. It's very important to make sure you're capturing people.
Yeah, it really is. And what I've seen is the website is a check the box item. And really, you need to treat it the way you would treat home base when you're on set, right? When the first thing that producers do, or a producer does when they're putting a film together in pre-production, is they're saying, okay, where's camp going to be? Like, where are we going to look at the dailies? Where are we going to go back to when all the filmmaking is done to work on, contracts, union stuff, paperwork? Where's the editors, going to be, for the dailies? Where, like, you're trying to figure out, what about talent we're flying in that maybe doesn't stay in a hotel? Where are they going to go? Where do they check in at? It's a big priority is what I'm saying. Your website's the same way. So in your branding and marketing plan, a lot of times we'll see the website be in oh, by the way. No, it's your home base.
Yep,
Start there and then span out. Because, and I've heard some nightmare stories about Kickstarter, Nick, about, and maybe it wasn't always this way, like day one Kickstarter, but lately I've heard, okay, Kickstarter is kind of a nightmare if you're trying to raise funds for your movie on Kickstarter. But the thing I like about Kickstarter is it forces you into a thought process that you should be using when you build your website. I truly believe that. If you approach building your website the way you would approach building a Kickstarter campaign to convince somebody to be transactional with you there, your website's going to be awesome, because you're going to give them what, Nick? You're going to give them your why.
Yep,
or your whys, if you will. And they're going to now be part of your story for every person that takes the time to sort of understand why this film exists, who you are as a filmmaker, and why they should invest in it. And then, so once they're there and you know who they are, you can actually be transactional with them, target them a little better. And the one thing I love is this: hey, they watch this trailer, I know who you are. The next ad I send them is going to be a purchase link or a buy now button or whatever, right? So you can retarget, and it's called retargeting. So you came to my website, you danced around for a little while, I know who you are. Not only I'm going to send ads, a retargeted ad, not just to you, but to everybody kind of like you, right? So whatever I can find out about you through the bots I have working on my website, that's what I'll do. These are the kind of people in this area, this sex, whatever, like this, my content. I'm going to retarget, send an ad to purchase, and I'm going to keep sending that until they become transactional on it. And that's kind of why the website needs to be home base. And then all your social and everything else needs to be sort of the octopus legs around it. Okay. Reason number 3, clear messaging. And again, it's interesting because clear messaging could be part of number 2, right? It could be part of having a great website. Because what do you need on a great website, Nick?
Yeah, well, you have to have a clear message and clear content, and everything needs to be tied back to the initial thing, which is, what is the emotional driver, for someone to watch your film. So yeah, they're all, interconnected.
That's right. And so I've seen this done a few ways, but I'm starting to see a successful path forward in the second way. So the first way I saw was, or I've seen is, you have a paid ad on Instagram, and in the text part of it, you have quite a bit of text there. And then a learn more button on the picture that you can click. But now what I'm seeing is literally just the learn more button with a very compelling teaser or trailer, Nick, and then literally your slug line or tagline to your movie. Nothing more, very clear. This is what this movie is. Maybe you skip a space or two and you have starring and then it's just everybody it's starring, and no big hashtag tree, Nick. There's not 30 or hashtags there, which I think is the IG maximum.
Yep.
There's just one or two hashtags. So there's not a lot of investment put in the time it takes to create the spot, right? And the message is super clear. Everybody gets it. And it's not confusing as to, like, trust me on this, unclear message will keep people from clicking to find out more.
Yeah. And that, when you say unclear, that also gets into just noise, right? So I think the hashtags create noise.
Hashtag noise.
Yep. Additional content that you might write. It all creates noise. And then even, when you talk about clear message, or just call it clarity of message, that also comes down to, your teaser, your trailer, and any images that you use. Those images, you might be using, let's say, stills that you took, but are those stills purposeful, right? Are they associated with the brand of the film?
Yeah.
Right. It's not okay just to take a still and put it up there. No. What is the essence here? Like, what is the emotional tie? What are you trying to say? And does that image portray that? So if it doesn't, then again, you've created some noise, because you might have created some confusion, or someone might have considered that image to be, something else, something different. They got a different sentiment from it. So all of that needs to be tied together on all of your platforms. So social, whatever you text to your friends and family, whatever you put on your personal social account, whatever you put on the website, the teaser, the trailer, the artwork, all of it needs to have a clear and concise message.
Yeah. And I would say this just as like a little bit of tactical advice on creation of teaser and trailer content for, modern promotion on social media and on YouTube and on the web specifically, which is, 30 years ago, Nick, when you're in screenwriting and you're putting your screenplay together and you're shooting your film, something needed to turn the plot around within 10 minutes, or in other words, 10 pages, right? Mm-hmm. Fast forward 15 years. Now something needs to happen in the first 3 pages or 3 minutes. Now what you're seeing and happening in movies, especially action movies, is something needs to happen in the first 60 seconds or 30 seconds even. Like something like, we are moving. It is starting. And I think that your trailers and your teasers have to sort of meet that demand, because when you think about how you scroll through social media, it's such an unconscious movement at this point. Like, you're just flicking up and you're hitting hearts, flicking up and hitting hearts. And there's like, I've even felt guilty about it myself, Nick, where I will see like true art through photography, and I'm not absorbing it. I'm not looking at it for what it is because of the medium. And it's almost like it's not a good payoff, right? Because you gave me that great picture for free, and I looked at it for 2 or 3 seconds and clicked the heart button because I knew I liked it, but I didn't absorb the beauty of it, right? Why? Because the nature of the platform and how it's intended to be used, which is maximum content absorption in a certain amount of time, and 2, just the nature of the world's attention spans. So what does that mean for you as a filmmaker creating content to market against and try to have a clear message? It means have shorter text when you put things out. 2, when you create a teaser and a trailer, it means let something exciting happen, or outrageous even. I would say outrageous, maybe even over the top. Have something like that happen in the first 5 seconds of your teaser or trailer, Nick. And if you'll do that, you might be able to punch above your weight class from a marketing and branding outcome perspective.
Yeah. And I'll also get back to, that clear, concise messaging and, that first impression that indie filmmakers need to make with that. And, I've done a lot of research on art and taglines, right, for indie filmmakers. Mm-hmm. And also done some of the trailer reviews as well. Let me talk real quick about the trailer stuff, and I'm going to jump off of it. If you have a trailer out there that is nothing more than the beginning of your film, that's a fail, right? Like, I'm sorry, that is such a fail. And I don't know if that's a fail on the filmmaker side, on the distributor side, or what, but I've seen way too many of those. Mm-hmm. It's just ridiculous. I mean, honestly, in some of these, I'm just watching the credits roll, right? It's like, what is that? That is not a trick. Like, that's not going to get someone to watch your film. Wow. So please don't do that. If you have control over it, if you're having a conversation with your distributor, don't let them do that. That's ridiculous. But what I wanted to mention was the tagline, right? So this messaging about being clear and concise and tying back to all the things that you mentioned, just thinking about some of those taglines and how, there seems to be some folks who try to create some mystery around what their film is about, where it's like, 20-something spends the night in a cabin and things happen. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Things.
Yeah. Like, what? Like, why do I care about this? You didn't say anything whatsoever. Right. So now first you give me a trailer that's just the opening sequence of your film and half of that is credits. And then you give me a tagline that says nothing.
Right.
Like, don't try to hide. That doesn't help you. Right. You're not hiding on social. Right. You're not hiding when you make your film. You're not hiding when going to get a distribution deal. Don't hide, what your film is about with a bad tagline like that. Right. Like, you want people to be interested. You don't want no one at this day and age, right? With kind of like the glut, because we want to say in 2020, there is this, huge, like dry spell for content. Like, that didn't happen. There's no dry spell, right? All of the streaming service providers that are out there have a catalog that none of us could watch probably in our lifetime, right? It's just, if you want to watch content, you can watch it. So there's no, dry spell. There's a glut of content. So in this day and age, when people are streaming across a multitude of platforms, no one is sitting here like, ooh, they didn't tell me anything. I really want to watch that one because now I'm curious. No, that's not how this game works, right? So you got to be clear and concise, tie it back to what we've said earlier about, the emotional connection to the audience. And then you've got something. Don't hide what you're trying to do in a bad tagline.
Yeah, what we call that is bridging narrative gaps. So for everybody taking notes at home, that's the term. So what happens a lot of times is the audience doesn't quite get it, and then you come in and get real intellectual and say, well, it's really a metaphor for the experience of childbirth,
underwater in an upside down cage.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. No. In Brazil. No. And you're right. And you're like, well, okay. So, cause what you do when you bridge the narrative gaps is you make your audience feel foolish, and that's not fair. And so they're not going to be in your corner, because what you're trying to do is what you're saying passively aggressively. That's weird. Passive aggressively. What you're saying to them is, hey, you weren't smart enough to get my film.
Yep, exactly. And that's not good footing to be on.
Yeah. It's the least cool thing you can do to your audience. Don't be that guy or gal who has to bridge the narrative gaps so that you can get away with bad storytelling. Don't do it. Nick, let's talk about this interesting little problem and shakeup that Warner Brothers is having. So for anybody that has been sort of paying attention to sort of the larger movie scene, they've understood and been watching two distinct differences in two of the bigger studios in Hollywood. So you see Universal, who was sort of first to jump to streaming with Trolls and Invisible Man, et cetera. They shrunk the theater or theatrical window, and they've been strategic and sort of out front, while Warner has brought on new executives, fired a lot of people, and most recently announced that their 2021 slate will go to HBO Max. And I think that's about 17 movies, Nick, and the filmmakers are furious.
Yeah, they're not happy with the situation at all, man. I mean, it's just like an uproar.
That's right. And why are they furious? Well, as it turns out, they're furious for the same reason. And they're on the same soapbox that both me and you, Nick, have been on for years, which is fair market value for your work. And what these big studio filmmakers are about to experience is something that the indie filmmaker has had to endure. And I might get a little passionate here, so forgive me, but they have had to endure from the beginning. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. It is class action lawsuit worthy. And they're experiencing it now because their films have been chopped off at the top, right? What do I mean by that? If I'm Chris Nolan, who has a long-term relationship with Warner Brothers and Warner Studios since 2002, if I make a $100 million film and it goes straight to HBO Max, right? And that's where all these films are going to go. And what kind of check can HBO Max cut me, right, for the film? They're probably going to cut me to break even, or maybe you write double the check so that everybody can be in profit participation. Maybe there's a streaming rate that you get, but the streaming rate's going to be commensurate with other streaming rates that are out there, most likely. And so it's a whole different game. Whereas if Chris Nolan was able to take his film to theater, he would have multiple exhibition windows, one, and two, that $100 million movie, because he's so excellent, could be a $2 billion worldwide grossing movie. Well, it just doesn't have that opportunity if it goes straight to streaming. And if you don't understand that as an executive, and Warner's new CEO comes from Hulu, he's deeply entrenched in the streaming game, and might not fully understand that the only reason the movie business works is because through marketing and branding of the filmmaker and the actors, you can get people to come out to the movies, have an experience, and pay $15 to $20 per ticket to watch a film. And if you go to streaming, that drops by 1,000%. What's the average streaming per stream rate at Amazon, Nick?
Well, I think right now, the last I saw, it was about 6 cents per view. But I think that is even being, I'll say that Amazon may not be as forthcoming with what the average is anymore, right? Some of these things are becoming a little bit more shrouded these days. But if the average is 6 cents, then some films could be making 2 cents per view.
That's right. And so I just wanted to make sure I wasn't talking out of my butt a little bit here. So if we do the quick math on that, that's 300 times less. So not 1,000. I'm sorry. I apologize. Because I believe you told me that movies cost $18 where you're at, Nick. That's 300 times, not 300%, 300 times less than what you would get for one ticket for that same viewer, not to mention all the other areas in which you can monetize your film if it has a theatrical run through sort of cooperative marketing campaigns with candies and Cokes and drinks and alcoholic beverages and the theater itself. And so all those revenue streams and profit participation streams for those that invested in that movie completely fall away, and you're left with the streaming money that is there for these big budget films. And isn't it interesting that they are so pissed off that there is going to be, that the lawyers are being corralled and lawsuits are probably going to happen to get these films out of Warner and onto somewhere where they can have a better chance to win. And so I say to you, Nick, isn't that what independent filmmakers should be doing right now against these services deals that pay between 2 cents and 6 cents a stream and try to fight for better rates?
Yeah, it's a challenge, because, you go back to what you just said about the lawyers, standing up and doing, putting some lawsuits out there. Well, and the independent community doesn't have, a team of lawyers ready to fight for them. Lawyers are expensive. Lawsuits are expensive. These are individuals going after major businesses, and it's a little bit more challenging. I mean, should they? Yeah. I mean, but how, right, is really the question. And I know that you and I have had some conversations with filmmakers where we're saying, get out of the distribution deal that you're in if you can, and I know that there's a number of distributors out there that do very short-term deals. Some of them will have your film for 15 years or even longer. But some of them will only do 2 years at a time and give you the option of getting out if you want to.
Yeah.
And, one of the things that we say is like, okay, so if you're in there and you're getting your 2 cents, right, per view, you're not making any money, right? It's just not happening on your film. So, take what you spent on this thing and really start to think about, if you just got, let's say, $10, right, from each viewer of your film. Okay, how many viewers would it take for you to make a profit? Mm-hmm. And then envision a new model for how you can, put your work behind a paywall or put ancillary products behind a paywall that they can take advantage of and market to that number of people times 2, right? If you need 30,000 people to make your money back, maybe if you market to 60,000, you can get those 30,000 to give you what you need. But basically it's like, you're dealing with 6 cents, 2 cents, 4 cents, right? You're going to be at the lower end of the spectrum as an indie filmmaker. Is having it on, let's say, an Amazon Prime worth it?
Yeah. And is it worth your marketing efforts if you're going to put out money to try to pursue scale at Amazon? And look, the reason they pay you that is because they say, well, you can achieve scale with us. Like you can hit millions and millions and millions of views in perpetuity and make that money back. But that's kind of a hustle because we know that 80% of the profits made from any movie are made in the first 3 weeks of release. And I'm not sure that's changed necessarily in streaming. What I think has changed with streaming is that you can have reboots of a marketing campaign, meaning you're going to hit a new audience after something kind of has been out for a while, especially in the indie world where like you had limited views to begin with. So your new audience always exists out there and you can reboot a new campaign. But I think in general, it's disingenuous, it's sort of intellectually dishonest. And to answer your question from earlier, what can we do? What we probably need is an ACLU for filmmaking, right? The WGA does that for studio writers and working writers, but I don't know if there is a group that advocates and will sort of take on pro bono work on the behalf of independent creatives in film that'll say, look, we have to do better than this, because the end run result of this is that some pretty promising filmmakers will only get to make 1 or 2 films their entire career, because when you lose the investors' money, those investors won't come back for round 2 unless, you have a different kind of plan. And then they're like, yeah, I believe in that plan, a little bit more than your first plan. And I also just think about it this way. How many views, if you took ownership of your film and didn't go to that distributor and get that services deal and sort of fought against your instinct to say, hey, I want my movie everywhere because I made it, and put it on a place like Gumroad, for example, behind let's say a $10 paywall, how many people would have to contribute before you'd make the commensurate amount of money from Amazon? If 10 people paid you $10, that $100 would probably be more than you would make in an entire quarter at Amazon through their payout system, Nick, which is kind of crazy. And look, filmmakers are the only ones. Musicians and YouTube creators are in the same boat, and we're kind of all like sort of fighting against the same big corporations that sort of have us over a barrel. I saw a story the other day, Nick, where a songwriter had 125,000 streams of his indie song, and he made $2.25.
Yeah, it's a game, man. And, the content creators,
I'm sorry, $225.
yeah, content creators aren't winning that game.
So think about that. The scale of that, if you sold anything to 125,000 people, you should be moderately wealthy.
Right.
I mean, it's just the truth. You should not have $225 before taxes. That is bananas. And so that's what has to change. That's why I say an ACLU for filmmakers would be a nice thing. Maybe it already exists. If it does, please reach out to us at contact@bonsai.film. We want to help you out, and because we want to help these independent creatives out. But there is two sides to this coin, right? Like,
yeah, for sure.
The other side of it is, so we know the system's jacked up.
Yep.
We know that we need to try to put some resistance and learn the lesson that Chris Nolan and these other filmmakers are teaching us right now, which is when some bullshit happens, have the courage to go and say, no. This is not how this business works. You don't know what you're doing. We're going to fight against it. Got it. Now, on the other side of the coin is sort of what I call the willful ignorance that we as independent creatives continue to deploy, Nick.
Yeah, and that's the part that I was going to get to, because this isn't necessarily, I guess, a secret. There's some of it is kind of hidden, right? Some of the numbers, but if you do some research, you can find these things. And I think that independent filmmakers aren't looking. I think that there's this notion that, their work is so great that people will automatically see it and it will automatically be successful. Mm-hmm. I think there's this idea that they're only responsible for making the film, and that's it. And that's where it's over. And like, once they make that one, they put it up there wherever it can be put up. And then they start to work on the next film. Those are approaches you can take. There's not necessarily anything wrong with those approaches, right? Mm-hmm. If that's what you want to do, fine. But I think, when you and I talk about independent filmmaking and where we see it going and its possibilities, we're always looking at profitability. We're looking at the potential for it to be a springboard into the next project of significance. And just by putting something up there on the shelf, if you will, and then jumping to the next one is not going to get you there. So that, when we speak, we're really speaking to those folks who want to really make a profit, who want, this next project of theirs or the current project of theirs to really, be the next big thing for them. So you can't be ignorant to the game. You can't be ignorant to the fact that there's a business there that needs to be taken care of, one, from the get-go, right, from the beginning, but really at the end, like when the product has been completed, when the film is done, everything is in the can, as they say. Now what? How are you getting this thing out to the people, and what are the distribution deals that you're looking at? And, what are your expectations on return on your investment? Because that's going to determine which platforms you go with. The thing that we've, said before about the traditional distribution deals for independent filmmakers is that they're services deals. Hey, you're going to pay us in order for us to get you on Blu-ray, DVD, and 15 different streaming platforms. Right.
It's a type of multi-level marketing where you have to pay to play.
Exactly. And those platforms may not even be good for you. They might not even be good for your film or your product or your message, but, someone's going to promise to get you out there, and then they're going to pay you based off of the number of views. And it's like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, the businesses shouldn't operate that way. Right. And again, I'm getting back to the independent filmmaker. You have to understand that if you're trying to make a profit, you have to operate as a business. So this willful ignorance about what happens to your film once it's done is just, it's kind of mind boggling in this day and age. We have, unfettered access to information. Right. It's all out there, even us, this is something we preach on the podcast, on a fairly regular basis to let people know, so there are people out there saying it. There's information out there for you. So, so basically the point is that don't be ignorant to the fact that system is benefiting itself and not necessarily looking to benefit you. And it's your responsibility as an independent filmmaker to make that profit, right? To make the decisions that get you paid. It will not be on the distributor. They don't do that. That is not their model. They're going to hopefully build a slate large enough that it contains one or two unicorns, and those two pay for everything else.
That's right, Nick. And if you're a producer, especially, this message is for you. I mean, be in the business of profitability for your filmmaker and for your investors, and don't delude yourself, fool yourself into thinking that, look, here's the thing. People listen to this and say, okay, this is Chris and Nick. They do Indie Talk. They represent a company. Ultimately, they're trying to sell us something from Bonsai Creative. Okay, not exactly true. We have not pulled any punches. There isn't like a secret one piece of forbidden knowledge we're keeping behind the wall until you call us or email us or something like that. No, on this podcast, we made a decision very early on that it was a passion project for us, something we wanted to do for the community. And so every piece of knowledge that we have about this, we just share it with you openly, and forthrightly to say, don't make these decisions. You don't have to be willfully ignorant about it. You don't have to say, well, this time it'll be different because this is what this person promised me, or this is what this person said, or this is what my contract says. And a contract is a contract is a contract. Not in film. Film is highly shrouded. You're going to run into a shark if you're an independent filmmaker, and you have to be very careful. And the net result of all this, by the way, is you end up feeling deflated. And you end up feeling like a loser because you say, oh, okay, example I used earlier, Nick. Oh, my movie only made $100, let's say this month on a services deal. Well, that means that 1,700 people just about watch your movie. That's not bad. 1,700 people watched your movie. So why would you want to have 1,700 people sit down for over an hour and watch your movie so you can make $100 instead of taking ownership of your film, of your baby, right? Hitting the ground running, putting your movie behind a paywall, whatever plan you take, four-walling it back in the day, right? Whatever approach you take, all you have to do is get 10 people to give you $10 to make that same money. So which one's harder, to get 1,700 people to watch your film for $100 through some service or services, or to convince 10 people in your community to pay you $10 for your movie? I mean, to me, the answer is kind of a no-brainer, Nick. So
yeah, but again, it's the it's that ignorance. It's just not knowing. It's believing that the distributor is going to do something greater for you, and hopefully we can say it in as many ways as possible and plaster it up as, on as many virtual billboards as possible so that people can, see the writing on the wall, as it were, to say that, as an independent filmmaker, you are responsible for your success. You are responsible for the business of your film. And, everyone else out there has a piece of the puzzle, right? No other entity has everything, like even Bonsai. We don't have everything to give you. We have a piece of the puzzle, but you have to understand what those pieces are, when to use them, and how to use them in the most efficient, effective way for your project. So yeah, so you can't just go into it thinking that a festival is going to, it's going to get picked up there, or the distributor is going to love it and then do all the marketing for you. It just doesn't work like that for indie film.
Right. Average cost of an indie film is $500,000, just about. You need 50,000 people to give you $10 to break even, basically. Right? 50,000 people is a lot of people. That's a lot of hustling if you don't have a deal, right? If you're going to do what we suggest and not play into the hands of a business that isn't looking out for you, that's a lot of people. But for those same 50,000 people to see your film, you're going to make $3,000. $3,000 before taxes and before that distributor's expenses, by the way. Okay. For 50,000 people to watch your film. So to me, it's a mathematical no-brainer. Take heed if you're out there listening as an indie creative, and Bonsai Creative definitely has your back and will help you out as much as we can. And what I mean by that is with information. And so, speaking of information, Nick, I think people can find more information. Here's how they can do it. They can reach out to us via email at contact@bonsai.film. That's BONSAI.FILM. They can reach out to us on social media, on Twitter and on Instagram at _Bonsai Creative. They can find us on Facebook just by searching for Bonsai Creative, and we will come right up. And then most importantly, I think most of the information, especially information of this ilk, Nick, can be found at our website at www.bonsai.film. Nick, thanks a lot for this awesome conversation.
Yeah, for sure, man. This is always great. Love having these conversations with you and digging in on some of these great topics for the indie filmmaking community.
That's absolutely right. How many blog posts would you say we have up now at the site?
Oh man, I think it might be between the 40 and 50 range. And then we've got some other, on our community page, we've got some kind of bits and bytes of information we provided there. I think that's, 20 and 30 little things we've been putting up there as well. And of course on the site that you can also get to our podcast episodes. So yeah, podcast episodes, blog posts. We've got the little bits and bytes of information in the community section. So lots of stuff available to folks.
Yeah, that's right. And this is stuff that's curated specifically for independent film. We are only in independent film. We don't do anything else. We're not addressing studio filmmakers or writers or anything like that. We're here for the independent filmmaker. So definitely, again, go to www.bonsai.film to find all that. In addition, we have our industry insights content that rolls out on this podcast, same feed, so you don't have to go and find it anywhere else. If you're subscribed to the Make It podcast, you'll get our industry insights content. You will get our mistakes in the making content, which is filmmakers who tell you how they improved by making a big mistake in their career. And then we have our film investment series content that comes out weekly as well, really geared towards people who want to be investors in film like Nick and I are, or people who want to be producers in film like Nick and I are. So I hope you guys will listen to all that content, enjoy it all. It is being made for you and in many, many ways by you. So with that, Nick, thank you so much. And I know I'll talk to you soon. Why don't you send everybody off with the credo?
Sure, man. So to all of the filmmakers out there and friends of filmmaking, I'll say, as always, be better, be creative, be engaged.
And thank you for listening. Nick, talk soon.
Yeah, man. Take it easy.
All right, brother. Bye.
Later.
You've been listening to the Make It podcast. To find more information about this week's topics, including links to relevant blog posts, projects, and indie creatives, please visit our website at www.bonsai.film. If you haven't already, you can join our podcast community on Apple Podcasts or the podcast app of your choice by searching for Make It Bonsai Creative, and the show will pop right up. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at _Bonsai Creative and Facebook by searching for Bonsai Creative. And of course, if you're looking to take a big step towards your filmmaking success, go to www.bonsai.film and click on Book Us to schedule a free discovery meeting and needs assessment. You have everything to gain. Until next time, be better, be creative, be engaged, and thank you for listening.